Imagine for a second that you were walking into a church service.
Okay.
You're expecting the usual stuff, maybe a hymnal, a bulletin, a friendly usher.
Sure.
But instead, someone hands you a glass of industrial-strength poison. Or maybe you look at the front row and people are casually passing around a venomous snake.
Yeah.
Like it's a collection plate. And the whole mindset in the room is, if I have enough faith, this thing can't kill me.
That is a vivid and, frankly, an absolutely terrifying image. It sounds like the opening scene of a thriller.
Right.
But for a certain slice of believers, that kind of high-stakes risk it's the ultimate proof of their standing with God.
It's so intense, and it's exactly where we're starting today. We're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating piece of audio recording of a prayer meeting and a sermon that tackles this exact thing. It takes a hard look at the famous Great Commission in Matthew 28 and those really controversial verses in Mark 16 about handling snakes and drinking poison.
And we should be really clear here before anyone hits the panic button. The source material we're analyzing today isn't endorsing that kind of reckless behavior. Not at all.
No.
In fact, the entire sermon is basically a deconstruction of the difference between, say, superstition like thinking you have a magical immunity shield,
Right.
and actual spiritual authority.
Exactly. The whole mission for this deep dive is to decode that argument. We're going to see how the speaker distinguishes between having a magic wand versus having a real relationship with the divine.
And the illustrations he uses are, they're wild.
So wild. We've got talking donkeys, we've got shipwrecked apostles, and there's a story about a man hammering a water faucet into a tree thinking it'll just work.
That faucet analogy is really going to be the anchor for this whole discussion. It's such a powerful, if slightly tragic, look at the difference between the appearance of something and the actual function of it.
So let's just jump right in. The source material starts by going right at Mark 16.1618. For those of us who aren't Bible scholars, this is the part that says believers will, drive out demons, speak in new tongues, and here's the kicker, pick up snakes with their hands and drink deadly poison without being hurt.
Right. And, throughout history, some people have taken that very, very literally. But the speaker in our source draws a really sharp line here. He basically offers a reality check.
He does. He specifically references the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, that was pretty blunt. He basically asks, I don't see pastors going into hospitals laying hands on COVID patients to cure them instantly without doctors.
Exactly. He's pointing out the pragmatism that actually exists even among the faithful. He says, just because these verses exist, it doesn't mean you shouldn't wear a mask or that you don't need medicine.
And he's quite critical of what he calls confused believers, or people in less developed areas who intentionally let snakes bite them.
Just to prove a point.
Just to prove a point. And he doesn't pull any punches on the result either. He says they get bitten, they swell up in pain, or they die.
Yeah. So there's no magic force field just because you want to show off?
But, and this is the key nuance here, he doesn't say miracles don't happen.
No.
He pivots to a very specific story about the Apostle Paul to explain how this snake immunity thing might actually work in practice.
This is the story of Paul shipwrecked on the island of Malta. Right?
That's the one, yep. So picture the scene. This isn't Paul preaching in some big stadium. He's a prisoner. He's just survived a massive shipwreck.
He's having a bad day.
A terrible day. He's wet, he's freezing cold. On this strange island, he goes to gather wood for a fire, just manual labor, and a viper comes out of the heat and latches onto his hand.
Come on. You survive the ocean just to get bit by a snake while trying to warm up.
Precisely. Now, the speaker really highlights the reaction of the locals, the Maltese islanders. When they see the snake hanging off Paul's hand, their first thought isn't, oh no, let's help him.
No. What do they think?
Their thought is, this guy must be a murderer.
A murderer? That seems like a huge leap.
Well, it was their superstitious view of justice. They thought, okay, he escaped the sea, but justice itself, with a capital J, won't let him live.
So the snake is like the executioner.
The snake is the executioner. They're literally just sitting there, watching him, waiting for him to swell up and drop dead.
But he doesn't.
He doesn't. He just shakes the snake off into the fire. No swelling, no screaming, nothing.
And the locals.
They completely flip. They go from thinking he's a murderer to deciding he must be a god.
That's some serious whiplash in public opinion.
It is. But the speaker's point here is so crucial. The miracle Paul not dying, it wasn't some parlor trick Paul performed to impress them.
Right.
It was situational. It was initiated by God for a specific moment of protection. Paul wasn't walking around carrying a bag of vipers just to prove he could.
I see. So the argument is that authority isn't like a superpower you can just turn on and off whenever you want.
Exactly. It's not something you possess like an object. He uses this great analogy.
How's that?
He says, authority isn't a physical object like a teacup that you just carry around in your pocket. You can't say, I have the teacup, so I'm in charge.
I love that line. Authority is not a teacup. That should be on a t-shirt.
It really clarifies the concept there, doesn't it? It means authority is entirely dependent on the relationship with the source of that authority.
So if you're disconnected from God, you don't hold the authority, no matter what your title is or what verses you can quote.
Exactly. Which leads us to maybe my favorite part of the source material.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
To illustrate what happens when authority gets disconnected or misaligned, the speaker brings up the Old Testament story of Balaam.
Ah, yes. The mercenary prophet and the talking donkey.
That's the one.
This story always cracks me up, but the speaker uses it to make a really, really serious point. So set the stage for us. Who's Balaam?
So Balaam is a prophet for hire. He's got a huge reputation. The belief was, if he blesses you, you're blessed. If he curses you, you are cursed. And the enemies of Israel, specifically the king of Moab, they hire him. They pay him a ton of money to come and put a curse on the Israelites because they're afraid of them.
So he's basically a spiritual gun for hire at this point.
In a way, yeah. But here's the twist. Every single time Balaam tries to curse them, God intervenes and forces him to bless them instead.
He can't do it.
He literally cannot get the curse out of his mouth. But the part the speaker focuses on is the journey, the incident on the road to Moab.
Okay, right.
Balaam is riding his donkey. Now, Balaam is the seer, right? The prophet with the spiritual insight. But suddenly, the donkey just veers off the road into a field.
And Balaam gets mad.
He gets mad and beats the donkey. Then they get to this narrow path with walls on both sides, and the donkey crushes Balaam's foot against the wall, trying to avoid something.
So he beats the donkey again.
And he still doesn't see anything.
He's totally blind to it.
Completely. Finally, the donkey just lays down under him. Balaam is furious. And then the donkey opens its mouth and speaks.
A literal talking donkey.
Literally speaks to him. Basically says, why are you hitting me? Have I ever done this before? And then God opens Balaam's eyes, and he sees what the donkey saw the whole time.
Which was what?
An angel with a drawn sword standing in the path, ready to kill him.
So the donkey, a farm animal, had more spiritual vision than the famous prophet.
That is exactly the speaker's point. He says, look at this man. He has the title, prophet. He has the authority.
The teacup.
He has the teacup. But because his heart was greedy, because he was going to curse God's people for money, he was completely blind, he was about to be killed, and a donkey had to save his life.
Well, it really drives home that idea that authority isn't a badge you wear. The speaker says, if you're out of alignment, a blessing can turn into a curse.
Yes. He warns that even if you have the power to lift your hand and bless someone, if your relationship with God is wrong, that authority is useless. It might even be dangerous to you.
Which transitions perfectly into the next big segment. The speaker moves from the Old Testament to the Great Commission in Matthew 28.
Go and make disciples.
Right, and he focuses heavily on the Trinity aspect here, baptizing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But he pivots to a critique of modern Christianity. He calls it the membership card mentality.
Oh, this part really stood out. He talks about people who think baptism is just getting an ID card.
Yes, like, okay, my name's in the church register, I have my ticket to heaven, now I can go back to living however I want.
Exactly. He critiques the idea that the ritual itself, the water, the ceremony is what saves you.
Yeah.
He argues that if you get the ID card, but you don't know the truth or follow the teachings, it's meaningless.
And to explain this, he tells that story about the villager we mentioned.
The faucet story.
The faucet story. And I have to say, it's a funny image, but it's also kind of heartbreakingly clear once you think about it.
It is. The story goes that a man from a remote village visits a developed country, and he's just fascinated by the plumbing.
Yeah.
He sees the faucet on a wall,
Yeah.
he turns the handle, and water just pours out. It looks like magic. He thinks the water comes from the metal fixture.
He's focused on the object, the faucet itself.
Right, so before he leaves, he goes to a hardware store and he buys a faucet. Just the fixture. He takes it back to his village, gathers everyone around,
A big presentation.
a big show, and he hammers this faucet into a tree. He tells everyone, watch this. He turns the handle, and nothing.
Of course not, because there are no pipes. There's no reservoir.
Exactly. But the insight the speaker draws from this is profound. The villager had the appearance of the water source, the faucet. That's like the ritual of baptism. or calling yourself a Christian.
But no connection to the source. No plumbing behind the wall.
And the speaker argues that the line, observing all that I have commanded, the obedience part of the Great Commission, that is the plumbing.
That's powerful. Without the obedience, without that daily connection, the ritual is just a dry faucet stuck in a tree. You can turn the handle all you want, but nothing life-giving is going to come out.
Such a sticky metaphor. It really makes you ask yourself, am I relying on the fixture or the flow?
It connects right back to that teacup analogy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We want the object. We want the Christian label, the baptism certificate, the faucet.
But the speaker is relentless. Those things are just dead weight without the relationship.
Speaking of relationship, the sermon takes a turn towards the end of Jesus' life on earth. The speaker talks about the ascension, but first he emphasizes something interesting about Jesus' death.
He emphasizes that Jesus truly died. It wasn't an act.
Yeah, he says it wasn't a play.
Right. He's countering a specific kind of skepticism where people might think, well, Jesus was God, so he didn't really suffer. He just used his superpowers to turn off the pain.
Right, or to fake his death somehow.
Exactly. And the speaker points out that during his life, Jesus didn't use superpowers to skip meals or fly around. He lived by natural laws. He got hungry. He got tired.
And when he walked on water, that was a very specific teaching moment.
Very specific. And even then, Peter sank when he tried it. The point is, Jesus' death was real, absolute silence. So when he resurrected, it wasn't a magician revealing a trick. It was a total conquest over death.
And then comes the promise. I am with you always, to the end of the age. Now, usually when I hear end of the age, my mind goes to movies.
Right. World War Z, asteroids, the apocalypse.
The big global finale. But that's not what he's talking about here.
No, the speaker offers a much more personal and I think moving interpretation. He says the end of the age refers to your personal end.
He gets very specific here. He mentions a name from his congregation.
Yes, Sister Zhang Shu Mailan. And he also mentions his own father. He says for them, the end of the age has already happened. It was the day they passed away.
Wow, that completely shifts the perspective. It's not about waiting for the sky to fall in some distant future.
No, it's about the fact that my personal clock is ticking right now. And the promise is that Jesus is with the believer through their specific life right up until that personal clock runs out.
But this comfort, it comes with a challenge. The speaker anticipates a complaint. He imagines a modern listener saying, God, you're too conservative, you're too old-fashioned.
You need to keep up with the times.
Exactly, the progressive critique. The idea that the church or God's laws are outdated and need like a software update.
And the speaker's rebuttal is the sun.
The sun. It's so simple but effective.
He asks, is the sun today the same sun as 5,000 years ago? Or 10,000 years ago?
Well, obviously, yes. It's the same big ball of gas burning in the sky.
And do we tell the sun, hey, you're a bit too hot today, can you change your nature? No. The sun is the constant. We're the ones who adjust to it. We wear sunglasses, we seek shade, we wake up when it rises.
So God is the sun in this analogy.
Exactly. He argues that truth with a capital T is a constant, like the sun. We are the variable. We're the ones who change, who fluctuate, who have modern standards. We can't drag God down to our level or ask him to change his nature to suit our comfort.
That's a hard pill to swallow for a culture that likes to customize everything.
It is, and that sense of entitlement leads to his final and maybe most stinging critique. The concept of cheap grace.
He uses an airline analogy here, which I think everyone can relate to.
He does. He says if you want to fly business class or first class, what do you expect?
A high price tag. You know you're paying for the premium experience, the legroom, the service, all of it.
Right. You pay a cost, and yet, the speaker notes, people expect heaven, the ultimate destination, the ultimate first class, to cost absolutely nothing.
They expect to put in zero effort, zero obedience, and just glide right in.
He calls it arrogance. And he points to Peter again. Peter, who walked with Jesus for 3.5 years. Peter, who saw all the miracles.
And even Peter denied Jesus 3 times out of fear.
So if Peter, who is basically the CEO of the disciples, struggled so much, who are we to think it's easy?
That's a good point.
Yeah. The speaker concludes that being a believer isn't a one-time faucet purchase. It's a life of daily repentance, humility, and recognizing that you need that connection to the source every single day.
Wow. Okay, so let's just recap where we've been. We started with the shocking image of handling snakes.
Moved to a talking donkey that had to save a greedy prophet.
And we ended up with a faucet hammered into a tree.
And the thread connecting all of it is the nature of true authority. It's not a magic trick. It's not a title. It's not a piece of hardware you buy from a store.
It's a living, flowing connection that requires alignment and obedience.
It really challenges that whole shortcut mentality. We all want the result, the water, the miracle, the blessing, without the plumbing.
Which brings us back to that final provocation, that image of the faucet.
Yeah.
And I think the question for you, the listener, is, in your own life, in your own quest for knowledge or purpose, what are you holding on to?
Are you polishing the shiny fixture? The degree, the job title, the reputation, the certificate?
Or do you actually have the pipes connected to something real?
Because a faucet without water isn't just useless, it's a delusion.
A delusion hammered into a tree. That's a heavy thought to chew on for the rest of the day. Thanks for diving deep with us, everyone.
See you next time.